Francis here from MTBR, and today we're going to do a little shop talk. I'm going to show you how to service the linkage in your Santa Cruz bike. And the linkage is the bearings and the hardware that it sits on, and we're going to check its health and get the dirt out, put some new grease in, and see if we have to take it to the next level, which is change the bearings. So the linkage, hopefully you're not forgetting it like me, is actually the heart of the system of a full suspension bike. It's the one that takes all the load, both up and down and lateral, takes all the dirt, and once it stiffens up, gets loose or gets crunchy, it compromises your ride. Whatever you do with your fork, your air pressures, your tire, it's not going to be ideal if your linkage is not free moving and allowing your suspension to do the work. If you're anything like me, you're in a shelter-in-place situation where you are allowed to exercise. You have to stay home, but you're allowed to exercise but stay away from people. And this bike, the Heckler, has actually come in real handy. It's a test bike, but I've been able to ride from home, get as far away from people as possible in a quick amount of time, in a safe way, and come back. And now I have some time to maintain this stuff because I've been riding a lot, and I've been riding in a lot of wet conditions, and that affects really the linkages and deteriorates it a little faster. So we have a Santa Cruz bike, obviously, and they're one of the better companies when it comes to linkages and serviceability. What they do is they've designed in hardware that's really reliable. It stays tight. You know, it's very serviceable, and they inventory the parts up to 10 years in their warehouse. So, you know, you have a 8-year-old bike, it's time to replace it, replace a part, it's completely worn, you know, they'll have it. And they go a step further because they believe in the concept where they will give you lifetime replacement on your bearings. And so you got to take advantage of that. So that's why it's a worthy cause. You know, they seem to have that Patagonia or Volvo mentality where they want stuff to last and be fixable, maintainable, and not to throw away stuff. You know, after 5 years, some bikes, you know, they just fall to pieces. You know, they want their stuff to be maintainable. So there you go. Hope you find this helpful. We're going to go through a few steps. We're going to have a few tools, a bunch of Allen wrenches, and need some shop rags, some degreaser, and we'll go through the process together, all right? And I'm no expert at this, trust me. But if I can do it, you can do it too, all right? Okay, the first thing you got to do is clean your bike. Yes, you do. You could work on it dirty, but trust me, you're just going to make a mess and you're going to contaminate the stuff you're cleaning. So clean it, and you don't have to clean it that hard, meaning, you know, you don't have to scrub it so much and make it meticulous or power wash it because you might be causing damage to it. So just get all the clumps of dirt out, and then you need some tools. You need some Allen wrenches, 5, 6, and 8 millimeter Allen. You need a grease gun. The bigger the better. Doesn't really matter. Some gloves and a rag, degreaser. I'm just going to use Windex for now. And what else do we need? And a video. or an iPad or a laptop, because one of the really cool tools right now is either YouTube or the Santa Cruz website, because they've taken so much effort to explain step by step how to do this. So put the bike in the stand, take the rear wheel off. For me, front wheel as well, just this bike is a little bit heavy. Okay, the first thing you want to do is get a nice area to work with. Put the bike in a bike stand, raise it up to your level so you're not crouching down so much. The suspension is kind of low on a Santa Cruz bike. You know, get the rear wheel off for sure, maybe front if you know, to keep the weight, the stress on the bike stand down, and remove the rear shock. So rear shock is just held by one bolt. I'll go for it right here. Now we get to the guts of a Santa Cruz, which is using a 5. We have these cone-shaped washers, and they're really cool. So what they do is they lock the axle in place. So they don't make the axle any tighter, but you tension the axle by itself, make that thing perfect, and then here is the cone-shaped washer. You take it off. What is that, a 5? So the actual axle is an 8. Yes, it is. So these are normally pretty tight. I'll tell you the torque specs later as we get close, but I've loosened these already. And then one thing I noticed, it's hard to get the axle out, so you need to grab it. Use a pair of pliers for me. Boom, there's your axle, and there is the Allen is here, but this expands with your cone-shaped washer. So that's what locks it in place. Okay, and then we repeat the same process for the other axle. Where are you? Right here. It's a little hard to get to. So the Allen wrenches are tricky because you need long ones, you need leverage, but the swing arms are in the way as well. So having a couple is not a bad idea. So here is my washer, resisting arrest. So one thing really handy as well, I'm not sure if it was obvious, but have your tools on a table and your hardware that you can reach it. If you're constantly going to the floor to put them down and whatnot, that just makes the job a lot harder, and you might lose your bolts or washers. Okay, so here is the axle. Let's see if it'll come out. Yes, this one comes out. Boom, look at that, huh? So as you can see, it's got some grease on it, so that's what the paper towel is for. And now the linkage should be free to roam. So as I'm taking it out, I'm hearing some crunching noises. This thing is dirty. Even though I cleaned the bike already, it's filthy in there. Especially on these lower link bikes, they take in dirt and mud every time. So here is your linkage, so you could see, and this all needs to be cleaned because now that we've disturbed it, the dirt will get in between the frame and my seals here, and we don't want that because this is constantly moving. Okay, so the first thing you do is you could do just a little check. Get your finger. Start twisting them. It's easy if you know your service interval 6 months or 9 months, but if you have no idea, then just give it a good sanity check. Is it smooth? Are there rough spots? Is there any play? Is it binding at all? And that's basically our greatest challenge today. So one thing you'll notice is, I'll do a close-up of this, is there's your Zerk fitting, And this is kind of the magic of this whole process. Is grease goes into the Zerk fitting, and then it goes in these channels, and these let me see if I can take this off. These bearings are one-way sealed. What does that mean? It means, so here's one open. So it means they're sealed on the outside, but on the other side they're totally open. So the grease is going through these channels and will find the open channel from the inside of the bearing and make its way out and push the bad grease out and dirt and replace it with a new grease. So it's the best way to clean a bearing, basically. So you take the seals out on each one, and then you get your gun. It's got a nice fit. That's Zerk for you right there. And you start pumping away. So I'll have a little close-up of me doing it. But it really is a work of art when you see it in action, because you see like the dirty grime grease just come out, and then it's completely replaced by the new stuff. And then when you check the bearings, it really is smoother. And this bike's not that old. It just got released. I just put a heck of abuse on it. So here we get to the heart of the job. We are gonna grease gun the links here. One key trick is slide the axles back in, because they will close out the channel ports of the Zerk's fitting, and it's time to pump away. This is the fun part. The event I've been waiting for, where you keep pumping and really see the new grease replace the old, and the old one should carry the contaminants away with it. So just clean it up, put the caps back on, clean up the caps too, test the smoothness, and time to install it. Okay, now that we got the exciting part done, meaning we got the bad grease out and the good grease in, it's time to start putting stuff together. The important thing is to make sure everything is clean. Use your degreaser, whatever you need. So I've cleaned this previously. Make sure on the surfaces where there's contact, there's no dirt. Because any piece of dirt will just get worked in there, because these are constantly moving parts. Okay, and what you want to do is make sure the axles are greased. I have a little mud guard here. You just gotta get through that. Get the conical in. So here the axles 8mm, and these don't have to be torqued heavily, because you don't want to squeeze the frame into the linkage. So once it stops, you're good to go. Six Newton meters. So don't be using the long end. And this is, again, I said, is the beauty of the Santa Cruz system, is they isolate the tension from the locking, which is always key, because when you're using the tension for keeping the system in place, meaning you tighten it, means you crank it down and you bind everything up. And I can't tell you how many full suspension bikes I've used, especially brand new. And I said, man, this thing doesn't work that good. And then finally I give up. I removed the rear shock, which it's become common practice for me. I remove the rear shock and see if the suspension moves. And some bike that doesn't even move. Like gravity can't even take it down. They expect you to wear it in or break it in or whatnot. It's just from the factory, it should be perfect, right? Maybe a little break-in. So here, I'm just using the short end. So there you go. Do the conical washers. Like I said, so the 5mm and the conical washer really just locks it in place. So this is the one that needs to be tightened. 180 inches, I think. So this one needs significant torque or Loctite. This is what keeps it in place. Magic. So really, kind of a fascinating job because you're messing with the heart of the system, but you're doing it yourself. Really cool. So there you go. I hope you found that fun and informative, at least informative. And more important, I wanted to demystify this whole linkage and bearing situation with these full suspension bikes because it is important. And one thing to remember with these bikes is you rarely have to replace the bearings. You know, that is a several year event, but it's very easy to service, inspect, and pump a bit of grease in there. And the reason is because they've made the design of the hardware simple and really serviceable. You know, first time you do it, it's a little bit daunting, right? But after a while, once you get into it, especially if you have a bunch of bikes, it'll be a 15-20 minute job. So, you know, get that feather in your cap, so to speak. So if you get in a situation where you have to replace the bearings, it's doable as well. You know, a little bit more specialized tools, a little bit more learning curve, and you could do it. But I would recommend you have a bike shop do it because they get the parts for free anyway. You know, that's still a big savings, and you get to give some money to their service department, you know, and support them, buy a few parts, you know, check in on them, so to speak, you know, support the local business, especially during hard times. So there you go. Hope you learned a little something. Time to go for a ride.